classification is quite subjective, and it's a personal thing to lots of different athletes. Depending on your classification can sort of dictate your performance, I guess, and where you progress to if you're not put in the right classification. I think that's something that needs to be dealt with appropriately to ensure that everyone is sort of put in the right class based upon their ability, so that then it's an even playing field for everyone.
I think classification is a problem or a challenge, but we must make a system that is clear for everyone, but also for athletes, also for officials, but also for the people they are watching our sport. So that makes Paralympic sport more interesting for people they didn't know about.
The system is transparent, so you know the procedure and it's somewhat systemised. My procedure to check whether my eyesight issues were different from somebody else. So the actual process is written down. We do this, we do that, so on and so forth. But the circumstances change, as in the environment changes and such like. So you have those things where the system's set up, but the action isn't always necessarily the same. But then I also think that there will be manipulation within the system. There will be people actively manipulating it.
In powerlifting, classification is not the foundation of the sport, it's actually your body weight. Every impairment's actually together. So I was never really exposed to classification until I started hanging out with other para-athletes, and they were telling me all the ways they could cheat, and it completely blew my mind. I thought to myself, so wait a minute, you can potentially over-exaggerate your impairment to get into a favourable class. That is way worse than doping. That actually makes me angrier.
I think the most effective solution will be a broader solution across all sports, and that is ethics. Yes, you could win by breaking the rules, but then it's not really a victory. You know, I want to win as much as anyone else and I'm putting everything I can into it. But there's a difference between that and the win at all costs. And I think this first exposure to ethics is a real strength of sport. And if we do it right, it can benefit people beyond sport as well as in sport and in anti-doping, things like that. I don't think there's a huge difference between the challenges in able-bodied and parasport. Most parasports are elite sports, and the same pressures are there. There's the same pressures to perform, there's the same pressures to perform on the day. And there's the same pressures, and maybe to a certain extent more pressures in terms of funding, because generally where parasport may be funded, it may not be funded to the same depth.
The Paralympic Games is still quite new, however it still wants to be as respected as the Olympics, and at the moment, because of the global audience, it's starting to catch the Olympics up in terms of TV coverage. For the Paralympic Games to be a respectable elite competition, it has to be treated the same, because we're asking disabled people to basically contribute to society equally, because they compete at the highest level, because the rewards are also as high now than the Olympics. So for me, they should also get the same sanctions if they're being proven to cheat on purpose.
In terms of being treated differently, I'm a person that champions inclusion. At the moment, I think we're a society that's gone through a transition of accepting disability, and potentially in my younger life, inclusion was seen as to make a space for disabled people that was different from the non-disabled. Now that's segregation in my mind. So I sort of think that we should all work together and train together and compete together as and where appropriate.
In my opinion, regardless of sort of your background or your disability or sort of your personal circumstances, cheating is cheating, and therefore you should just get the same sanction. I don't think there should be particularly any differences around that?
I think the sanctions in Paralympic and Olympic sport must be the same, because we have the same training professionality, so we must have the same consequence if we make some faults or we break the rules. And I think that's to start to take the Paralympic sport seriously.